Hey, what's up? Been tossing around the idea to make this video for quite a while now. This one's in regards to the HPPD video I made on how I cured my HPPD with psilocybin. Whew, this is a tough one. A lot of people, or everyone, I mean anyone that has been stricken with a severe cognitive issue from, the moment they come off of a drug, they feel like cognitively they're different, oftentimes for the worse, not different or not different in a better way, which I have experienced both actually. After one experience from mushrooms in the year 2000, which there was a lot of weird anxiety and fear around 2000 New Year's Eve, and that's when I did the mushrooms. A lot of people thought, oh no, that's when the world's gonna end, and the next time that happened was 2012. But 2000 had that going too. Same kind of vibe in the air where people were tense about what's going to happen when we hit 2000, So, I'm not sure if that had anything to do with portions of that particular trip. It was a heavy trip. I don't remember exactly how much I took, but it was probably the most intense mushroom trip of my life. I experienced an entity at my peak. At the peak of the experience, I felt completely like enveloped in God, quote unquote, or source, whatever. It felt, I won't go into it in depth because that's not what this is about, this video, but I did feel as if this entity was a female, which is odd. Considering I never, I always, when I think of the word God or think of the creator of the universe, I associate a male to it. I think of, I don't know why, but that's just, I guess, how we were brought up, or how I was brought up to think from the media and everything. Anyway, so that particular trip had an equally intense impact on me, on my very being, as the bad LSD trip, which caused my HPPD in the first place. Although this literally had several year-long afterglow effect. I had always been an angry person. I would naturally gravitated towards heavy metal and punk and stuff like that. Growing up, I was naturally just kind of, an angry dude growing up. And so it wasn't like me to be extremely friendly to people I didn't know and stuff like that. Not that I was a total dick to people I didn't know, but let's just say I was generally an angry kid. So after this trip, I remember I was in Berkeley, California, on New Year's Eve, tripping my ass off on mushrooms. And there was a lot of experiences that I had that were based in reality that I cannot explain. There was what I would call bona fide supernatural events during that trip. Granted, they were subjective. There's no one else that could actually take note of them and confirm them for me. But when I came down off the trip, though I had strong reasons to believe that these things could not have happened by explanation of, normal, mundane science, physics, whatever. It was bizarre. I won't go into it. I might make a video about it someday, but not now. It's gonna go way off of what I'm trying to accomplish here. But nonetheless, when I came off of this trip, I literally took all the money out of my pockets and gave it to homeless people as I was walking down the street. I was by myself. I wasn't trying to impress anyone. I just felt the need to do that. I felt that no matter what, everything was going to be okay. It was a super cathartic experience, although it wasn't even that bad of a trip. Usually when I have a really cathartic experience, there's a lot of negativity or fear at some point, you know, kind of like a purging of all that shit that's been building up. This time there wasn't much of that. It was just intense and beautiful experience through and through. Very visual, very beautiful, amazing experience. Anyway, I came down, I gave away all my money, and I went to the subway I stayed out there all night, tripping, had some alcohol with the mushrooms. I get to our local subway is called BART, Bay Area Rapid Transit, and it's like a subway system that goes around all the major Bay Area cities. And I get there, I have no money because I gave it all away. And I tell them the truth. I literally said the truth to the station agent there. I said, I gave away all my money. I had an amazing experience last night, and I'm not going to go into it, but can I get home for free? And lo and behold, which is really uncommon for them, they're usually really crabby assholes like cops. You know, they're a lot like, they have that attitude that cops do in a lot of cases. And lo and behold, the guy was like, yeah, no problem, Happy New Year. Okay, cool. Go home. I was really depressed and anxious before that. And all of that was gone. I became extremely creative. I felt a spiritual positive glow. It was a very spiritual feeling throughout the next several years. I wouldn't say it was something that wore off as much as society, bills, bullshit wore me back down to a point where I needed to do that again to experience that glow again. In other words, had I been in a situation where I didn't have any stresses, I think this glow would have lasted longer. It wasn't something like a chemical thing that just eventually had to wear off, like a drug. Like I was on a 2-year-long antidepressant. It was more like my view of this world has been like I had been spiritually completely cleansed. Let's just say that. And my spirit dirtied over the years and over the weeks, over the days, weeks, and years rather, after that, from just your normal wear and tear, basically, from your daily life. But for a good couple years, I was like music would touch me a lot harder, like deeper. I'd spend a lot of time alone, like, and be totally content, like, as opposed to like being depressed and alone and not wanting to be around people because you don't feel comfortable. It was more like I was comfortable no matter what, and just constant, like almost like in a meditative trance state, very clear-headed, very just super positive. I stopped drinking completely at that point, whereas I was drinking every night. I was just super happy, just fucking happy. So that's like the polar opposite of what happened from my bad LSD trip. And so cognitively I was clear-headed, I was able to accomplish more, I was more motivated, I was very creative and creating art more efficiently. So yeah, it was absolutely the opposite effect of the bad LSD trip, which left me cognitively cloudy, anxious, depressed, just fucked, you know. Anyway, the main point of this video is people are asking me, a lot of people are asking me, hey, you know, I had a fucking bad trip, or I have HPPD, do you think I should do mushrooms? That's tough. That's a tough call. It worked for me, and it, like, I know it's worked for tons of other people, with or without HPP, with or without mental issues. It seems to be effective in generally making people happier. But as far as, you know, this would be something to judge on an individual basis. Mushrooms are still extremely powerful, and I've heard of people being left shaken from the experience, not in a good way. So there's always a risk of that, of worsening your issues. If you do choose to do it, start extremely low, and make sure you have a sitter. Make sure it's extremely well planned out, and if one little thing ain't right, do not go through with it. Plan it out again until it is right, because any little fucking thing is huge when you're tripping. You know, every minute detail, any minute detail can affect the outcome of a trip, can cause you to spiral out of control mentally. So if you do it, be extremely diligent, plan extremely, you know, pay attention to your detail when planning. Low dose, have a sitter, and I'm talking about have someone you can trust to completely let go in front of, not someone that's going to judge you or make fun of you if you cry, if you even wet your pants. Whatever happens, you need to, like, put it this way, like, oftentimes when I want to trip recreationally on mushrooms, it never really works out. Like, I'll get together with a group of friends, and then I will find myself completely having to disassociate with the group and walk away by myself, and because it becomes such a personal experience. Not sure exactly what's going through my head at the time when I do it, but I mean, I need, at that point, whatever happens needs to happen, and there can't be any holding back of what needs to happen, even if it's like a, you know, like literally, even if you wet your pants. Like, it's never happened to me, but I've heard of, you know, all kinds of crazy shit happening on ayahuasca, and I don't see why it couldn't happen with mushrooms, because they're so closely related. Mushrooms are a form of DMT. They literally are DMT. So keep that in mind. What I would recommend to anyone that's thinking about doing this to cure themselves, start researching all the positive stuff that's coming out about mushrooms and psychedelics in general. A lot of people that have had a bad trip feel like they've actually damaged the meat of their brain, and it really isn't the case. It's not a neurological damage, so like it's not like you got beat over the head with a bat or something and now there's, you know, actual physical damage. That does not mean that psychological or even spiritual, I know that medically that's not a correct term. Maybe soon it will be, who knows, but it's more of a deeper psychological damage, I would call it that, but that doesn't make it any less harmful to your being or any like less severe. The only positive, on a positive note rather, it seems as though it's probably easier to treat and heal psychological damage than neurological, you know. Perhaps. I mean, I've heard of crazy shit happening where people will lose a chunk of their brain and somehow the rest of the brain makes up for it. So who knows, maybe psychological harm is worse, I don't know, but it just doesn't sound as bad as brain damaged. You're not brain damaged. Your psychology is extremely fragile. Everything you do every day, everything you learn, everything you experience creates wrinkles in your brain, memories, new memories, and they affect who you are to the core for the rest of your life. In a psychedelic experience, let's just say metaphorically, it puts deeper wrinkles in the brain. And if they're positive, that's great. You've done well for yourself. You've probably done well for your being, for your happiness, for your psychology. If you have a bad experience, you can harm yourself. You can harm your very being. So, basically, research the hell out of it. See what they're finding. They're finding absolutely astronomical results, positive outcomes for people with mushrooms. They're finding that the mushroom experience is, when they measured the brain waves of someone under mushrooms, it happens to mimic the exact brain waves adept meditators produce after meditating for decades. So if you've been meditating for a couple years, you're probably not producing these brain waves. But if you've been doing it for 20, 40 years, you start to actually manifest a whole different, your brain waves change. They actually change into, I believe it was alpha state, like you're in a constant alpha state or something. Don't quote me on that. But either way, it's a more positive mindset. And mushrooms happen to mimic this mindset. So that's really interesting. And I've thought about it before, like, meditators gradually get to that point. So typically they're not going to have a bad trip off meditating because they've gradually become, what's the word I'm looking for here? Accustomed to experiencing these states of consciousness. Whereas taking shrooms or acid, you're kicking the fucking door open, and it can be traumatic for some people. So yeah, that's that. But after, my bad trip and the HPPD, this was before HPPD was a word or a thing. No one knew what the fuck. They called it permafried, or, you're an acid casualty now, or whatever. You fucked up your brain. And this was way before they were talking about any kind of positive aspects of psychedelics. As far as society was concerned, and people, even the people that were using psychedelics that I knew back then, after 7 times, you're crazy. And I actually did a video about myths. That's one of the lame myths I heard growing up. You're legally insane if you've done acid a certain amount of times. Bullshit. So yeah, I did a bunch of research, and I found that there's so many ways to get this HPPD type phenomenon. It doesn't have to be LSD or mushrooms. It doesn't have to be psychedelics. I've heard or read about people getting it from antidepressants. People getting it from other medications that have nothing to do with the serotonin system. I've heard of fucking allergy medications causing people to have visual snow after, or palinopsia, which is trails. I've heard of here's a big one. Here's a really interesting one. Spiritual practices can cause HPPD. Spontaneous spiritual awakenings. I've heard about that causing HPPD. So sometimes people will have a spiritual experience where they all of a sudden they feel one with everything and connected with everything, just like you'd experience when you're tripping. And then after, they have visual snow and halos around stuff, whatever, semi-permanent or permanent, whatever. So that happens, which is extremely interesting. Yoga can cause it. Meditation can cause it. I've done a lot of research on it and came to the conclusion that it's not. It must be something deeper than a drug that is causing this. So finding that out actually took a huge weight off of my shoulders. It made it seem or feel less of a severe affliction. It's like, well, if anything can cause it, then I could just wake up one day and have it. Some people that could never figure out any significant reason why they would have it. They never done drugs, have it. HPPD-like symptoms. So I don't know, guys. But as far as, let me help you understand what I consider cured. Now, I have poor night vision. It may be because of HPPD or it may not be. But I understand as we grow older, our night vision isn't, as good as it was when we were in our teens, for example. You start to lose your vision, basically, or just isn't as good as it used to be. We also have tons of visual artifacts naturally. The visual system is not perfect. It isn't some infallible mechanism. It has flaws. It has artifacts. Much of what you see is simply brain chemistry filling in the blanks. Shortcuts, for example. Like your periphery, from what I understand, I never, this is trippy to me, it's weird to me, but your mind actually fills in what it thinks should be on your periphery. It's not like our world is stable around us. It's not you're not seeing everything in real time. It literally fills it in for you. You should research that. That'll help you understand that, all these little things are what helped me along the way with coping with HPPD. But cured. After my mushroom trip, I just felt like basically the anxiety and the depression and the depersonalization was gone. That was completely gone. Did the visual artifacts remain? Did the trails remain? Did the static remain? I don't know anymore, because it was almost like I was psychologically psyching myself out to notice them, to pay attention to them. Oh my God, I fucked myself up. Look at all this shit that I'm seeing now. When you remove that component, it's not. If I really focus, then I kind of notice I still see static a bit. But because that anxiety is not attached, I don't even notice it. It's hard to say that I even see it because I don't process it, I guess. I think it's all psychological, or mostly all psychological these days. I legitimately can say I'm cured. So I hope that helps understand what I meant by cured. It leads me to believe that maybe it was there the whole fucking time. And because when you trip, it magnifies everything, and you notice everything, and all this stimulus, you process more when you're tripping, and you pay attention to you catch every little thing, versus in normal day-to-day life, you filter out what you don't need. So when you have HPPD, it's almost as if your brain stops filtering out the static, etc., and you start to pay attention to it. So anyway, yeah, I can psych myself out and still see it if I pay attention. But it actually takes effort to. So, do I recommend mushrooms? Yes and no. You have to know yourself and know your body, know your mind, and take extreme caution if you do. Because now, if you're sitting here with HPPD watching this video, now you know the power of these substances and what they're capable of doing to you. So I hope that helps a bit. Alright, take it easy, guys. Be safe.